I sat in that imaginary studio, lights beaming, cameras rolling, and across from me, not celebrities, not politicians, but Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. Three of the most influential figures in human history, side by side, each embodying a radically different lens through which billions see the world. It wasn't just an interview, it was a philosophical battleground. A moment where centuries of belief, tradition, and cultural legacy collided under the scrutiny of one-on-one questions that couldn't be dodged. I started with what seemed simple. What does it mean to live a good life? The room shifted immediately. Jesus leaned forward, calm but intense. Love your neighbor as yourself. Forgive, turn the other cheek. The kingdom is within you. It was all heart, radical compassion. Then Muhammad spoke, firm yet measured. Submit to God, follow the path of righteousness, do good for society, stand for justice, and live with discipline. His focus, responsibility, community, and unwavering devotion. Finally, Buddha, serene and grounded, simply said, detach from desire, understand suffering, walk the middle path. Three answers, three worlds, love, law, liberation, and that's when it hit me. These weren't just religious doctrines, these were entire worldviews. Jesus represented moral grace, a revolution of the heart. Muhammad brought structured transformation, law, order, and societal uplift. And Buddha, he offered inner peace, the kind that doesn't need a god, just awareness. Then I pushed the edge. Do you believe humanity is lost? Jesus looked pained. We stray, but the lost can be found. There's always redemption. A message of hope, no matter how far you've fallen. Muhammad nodded, but added, humanity forgets its purpose. It chases power and ego. But revelation is a reminder. Truth has already been given. A powerful assertion that we already have the answers, just not the discipline. Buddha, ever calm, whispered, people suffer because they cling. When they let go, they find peace. No judgment, just observation. It was like watching three mirrors reflect human nature in completely different angles. Jesus saw the broken and offered love. Muhammad saw the unjust and offered guidance. Buddha saw the restless and offered silence. But then came the real test. Modern ethics. I asked, would you support free speech, even if it insults your beliefs? You could feel the tension rise. Jesus, again, led with grace. If someone strikes you, turn the other cheek. Truth isn't threatened by insult. Forgiveness over offense. Muhammad was unwavering. Insulting the sacred is a test of values. Freedom is not licensed to harm. Respect is the foundation of peace. A defense of honor, of sacred boundaries. Buddha, words have consequences. Speak with right intention. Silence is often wiser. No outrage, no surrender. Just mindfulness. That's when I realized this wasn't about who was right. It was about how they viewed the human condition. Jesus saw humans as fallen but redeemable. Muhammad saw them as responsible agents of divine will. Buddha saw them as trapped in illusion, capable of awakening. Their worldviews shaped not just followers but entire civilizations. Jesus' message inspired revolutions of forgiveness and mercy. Muhammad's teachings created a structured, justice-driven culture. Buddha's insights reshaped how we understand the mind and suffering, and yet the clash wasn't conflict, it was contrast. Beautiful, jarring contrast. Jesus told us to embrace the outcast. Muhammad told us to establish justice. Buddha told us to let go of attachments. Each was trying to save humanity, but from different things. Sin, injustice, suffering. By the end, I asked one final question. If you stood before the modern world today, what would you say? Jesus said, come to me, all who are weary. A message to the broken. Muhammad said, remember your duty to one another. A call for moral accountability. Buddha simply said, be still. Observe your mind. A gentle nudge to wake up. Three answers, none in contradiction, yet none the same. I sat there stunned, because what seemed like a clash at first was really a tapestry. Three threads that wove together the human spirit. We crave love, we need structure, and we yearn for peace. And maybe that's why these men continue to speak to us. Because no matter who we are, one of their voices reaches into our chaos and offers a different kind of truth. Not one truth, not the same truth, but truths that reflect the soul's complexity. In that moment, it wasn't about who won. It was about understanding that the clash of worldviews isn't about war, it's about perspective. And maybe the world needs less fighting over the differences and more curiosity about what they reveal. I sat across from three of the most iconic figures in human history, Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. And the question that pressed on my mind more than any other was this: would their ancient wisdom still hold weight in the modern world? In an age of smartphones, AI, gender politics, war, and capitalism, could teachings from thousands of years ago truly speak to us now? Or would they collapse under the pressure of modern ethics, technology, and individualism. I started the conversation with a blunt question: what would you say to someone suffering from depression in the age of social media? Jesus looked at me with compassion and said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." His message wasn't about curing sadness, it was about honoring it, a reminder that pain can be sacred. Then Muhammad spoke, "The strongest among you is the one who controls himself in anger and distress." It wasn't just spiritual, it was practical. Discipline, resilience, a kind of sacred mental strength. Buddha, with his calm demeanor, simply said, "Suffering is part of life, but know that it can end." He wasn't promising miracles, but insight, freedom through awareness. That's when it hit me. The core of their wisdom wasn't outdated, it was ageless. But it speaks a different language. In the modern world, we demand instant solutions, dopamine hits, and constant validation. These three offer something radically different: stillness, reflection, surrender. In our high-speed, self-centered era, their answers seem almost alien, and yet they might be exactly what we need. I brought up identity. Today, people define themselves by race, gender, politics. What do you say to that? Jesus replied, "You are all one in the eyes of God." No categories, just unity. Muhammad responded with, "The best among you are those who are most righteous, not by tribe, not by color." Again, focus on character over identity. Buddha offered a different view. The self is an illusion. Clinging to identity causes suffering. That answer could break the internet. But in a world obsessed with labels, these ancient voices challenge us to go deeper than surface identities. Then I pushed into something riskier. What about free speech, especially when it offends religious beliefs? Jesus, soft-spoken but unwavering, said, "Forgive them. They know not what they do." A high bar for tolerance. Muhammad answered with strength. Honor and respect are not negotiable. Freedom cannot excuse hate. It was a call to accountability. Buddha, true to form, said, "Speak only if your words are true, necessary, and kind." Three angles: grace, justice, mindfulness. Ancient wisdom offering layered answers to modern dilemmas. We talked about wealth next. I asked them what they thought about billionaires, luxury, and capitalism. Jesus answered, "It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." A clear indictment of greed. Muhammad added, "Wealth is not wrong, but it must be shared. Feed the poor, shelter the orphan." Buddha, unsurprisingly, went deeper. Desire is the root of suffering. Chase nothing and you will have peace. In a world driven by consumption, these three told Meg, stop chasing more, chase meaning. And yet their answers weren't about escape, they were about anchoring. Jesus anchored truth in love. Muhammad anchored it in law and justice. Buddha anchored it in awareness. Three different directions, but all offering what modern life often lacks: clarity of purpose. Then I asked about war, violence, and cancel culture. Should we fight for justice or turn the other cheek? Jesus paused. Those who live by the sword die by the sword. He offered the path of peace, but not passivity. Muhammad responded, stand for justice, even if it's against yourself, but never oppress. It was about balance. Fight for truth, but don't become the very thing you oppose. Buddha offered the most radical answer. Hatred does not cease by hatred. Only love ends hate. Not vengeance, not violence, just an end to the cycle. In that moment, I realized something strange. These three men lived centuries apart, in different cultures, under different empires. They didn't speak the same language or worship in the same way, but they all seemed to be speaking to the same human ache, the same inner chaos we now dress up with hashtags and trends. We call it modern, but it's not new. Anxiety, greed, loneliness, tribalism. These things existed back then too. They just had different names. And while we've advanced in tech, we're still behind in soul. What they offered wasn't superstition. It was survival, a blueprint to stay human in a world that constantly tries to dehumanize us. I ended the interview with one final question. If you had 30 seconds to speak to the modern world, what would you say? Jesus looked at the camera and said, "Come to me, all who are weary. I will give you rest." Muhammad said, "Live with purpose. Stand for what's right. Return to God." And Buddha said, "Be still. Know yourself. Let go." Those answers didn't go viral because they were loud. They went viral because they were timeless. And maybe, just maybe, ancient wisdom isn't outdated. It's just been drowned out by the noise of modern life. But when you strip back the chaos, you'll hear it in a whisper from centuries ago, still speaking to your heart, asking you not to become more, but to become real. The lights were on, the studio silent, and across from me sat three sacred figures: Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. Not cardboard cutouts, Not abstract ideas, but as if they'd stepped out of time, calm, poised, and ready to be questioned. Not worshipped, not followed, but questioned. And that's exactly what I was there to do. I didn't come to flatter them. I came with the questions no one dares ask, the kind that steer protests, headlines, and cancelled careers. This wasn't a sermon. It was a confrontation. Could faith survive under the spotlight of scrutiny? I was about to find out. I started with the toughest thing. Do you think your followers have distorted your message? Jesus didn't blink. Many use my name, but don't know my heart. I preached love, and they built empires. I died for peace, and they went to war. His words stung, not an accusation, but a mirror. Then Muhammad spoke, measured but intensely. I delivered a message of justice and mercy, but people twist revelation to suit their desires. That is not new, but the truth remains. He wasn't defensive, just clear. Then Buddha quietly said, the ego corrupts everything it touches, even teachings, especially teachings. That hit me like a punch. It wasn't even about blame, it was about nature. So I went deeper. Are you the final truth? That question alone could spark riots. Jesus looked at me, not with pride, but sorrow. I am the way, the truth, and the life. But many seek me as a weapon, not as a guide. I felt the weight of every televangelist, every culture war, hanging in that answer. Muhammad replied, the Quran is the final revelation, but truth is not owned. It is recognized by the sincere. He spoke with conviction, not superiority. Then Buddha, with a faint smile, said, truth is not a doctrine. It is an experience. I only point the way. The humility in that answer was staggering. Not one of them clung to control. They challenged us to seek, not submit blindly. I didn't stop. What do you say to those who use your name to justify violence? Jesus' eyes darkened. They never knew me. I healed the ear of the man sent to arrest me. I forgave my executioners. It was chilling. He didn't claim those who killed in his name. Muhammad answered next, unwavering, defending truth is not the same as oppressing. Jihad is not terrorism. It is struggle against the self, against injustice, not against the innocent. His words were fire, but refined. Then Buddha whispered, violence arises from ignorance. Enlightenment ends the need to harm. It was the gentlest rebuke, firm but without condemnation. Then I hit them with the modern dilemma. What do you think of gender identity and fluidity? You could feel the studio tighten. Jesus spoke with clarity. Every human being has infinite worth. Love them, but do not be afraid to speak truth in love. He didn't mock or scold. He called for honesty with compassion. Muhammad responded, God created man and woman, each with dignity. But dignity must not be reduced to desire. Seek balance, not confusion, not hateful, just structured. And Buddha, as always, he stepped sideways. The self is not fixed. Identity is like a wave, real but not permanent. Clinging to labels only deepens suffering. No lectures, just questions back at the question. Next, I asked about salvation. Can anyone be saved outside your path? Jesus looked straight at me. I came for all, but many reject love. Salvation is not earned, it is accepted. That line alone could split denominations. Muhammad followed a God is just, he judges hearts, not just rituals. But those who know the path and ignore it, what excuse will they give? Again, not exclusion, responsibility. Buddha didn't even blinky. There is no savior, only awareness. Everyone must walk their own path to awakening. Not heaven or hell, freedom from illusion. One last question. The question, if you stood in front of the world today with all our divisions, what would you say? Jesus didn't hesitate. Love your enemies. Feed the hungry. Forgive even if you're right. A radical message in a cancel culture world. Muhammad declared, return to justice. Stop the arrogance. Protect the weak. It sounded like a warning, but also a chance. Buddha softly, be still. The chaos outside reflects the chaos within. End it there first. And think silence, not awkward. These weren't just religious slogans. They were dangerous ideas. Dangerous because they didn't flatter our egos. They didn't reinforce our tribes. They confronted us with something terrifying, responsibility. It struck me then. Controversial questions don't offend truth. They reveal it. Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha didn't flinch. They didn't dodge. They didn't sanitize their answers for the modern viewer. They weren't worried about trending on Twitter or being misquoted on TikTok. They just spoke, and their answers weren't designed to please. They were designed to wake us up. In a world where faith is often reduced to sound bites and religion to politics, these three cut through the noise. And maybe that's why they still matter. Not because we always understand them, but because they're still willing to be questioned. If sacred figures can face hard questions without fear, maybe so can we. I looked across the table at three of the most powerful figures in human history: Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. And the question that lingered like smoke in the air wasn't about theology, miracles, or doctrine. It was this: have your teachings brought unity or division to the world? It wasn't rhetorical. It was raw, honest, and deeply uncomfortable. But it needed to be asked, because let's be real, billions of people revere these men. Entire civilizations were shaped by their words, but so were borders. So were auras, these them mentalities that still bleed into our politics, our media, and even our families. If these three figures all came preaching truth, love, enlightenment, why is the world still so divided? So I asked them directly. Jesus was the first to speak. His voice wasn't angry. It was heavy. I came to bring peace, but not as the world gives. Light exposes darkness, and not everyone wants to be exposed. It wasn't the answer I expected. He wasn't denying the division. He was explaining it. His teachings, he said, were like a sword, not to kill, but to cut through hypocrisy, to split false comfort from real truth. Even families are divided over me, he said, but that's not my desire. That's the cost of awaking. It was love that cost something. Not unity at the expense of conviction, but conviction that risks dividing the room. Then Muhammad spoke, calm, firm, grounded. Unity is a command. The faithful are like one body. If one part is in pain, the whole feels it. But when ego rises, division follows. He didn't blame the teachings. He blamed what people do with them. Islam means submission, he said. But people want domination. They want their tribe to win, not truth to prevail. That's not the fault of the message. That's the failure of the messenger's followers. It hit me like a stoning. Religion isn't always the divider. People are. Buddha didn't raise his voice. He didn't even change his posture. He just said, attachment creates division. We cling to ideas, identities, beliefs. We say you mine and yours. But truth has no owner. It is only seen, not possessed. He wasn't just speaking to theists or atheists. He was speaking to everyone. The moment you try to own the truth, to brand it, to weaponize it, you've already lost it. In his eyes, division isn't caused by belief. It's caused by clinging. I sat there, letting their words echo in my head. Jesus spoke of truth that confronts. Muhammad spoke of community betrayed by ego. Buddha spoke of illusion mistaken for reality. None of them called for division, but all of them acknowledged that division happens when humans twist what is pure for their own ends. So I asked again, more personally this time, if someone used your name to divide, to hate, to kill, what would you say to them? Jesus didn't hesitate. I never knew you. You can quote my words, but if you don't love, you know me. It was the cutting answer of the night. Not rage. Rejection. You can't fake faith by shouting his name while harboring hate. Muhammad nodded slowly. The one who kills an innocent soul as if they've killed all of mankind, that is the law. But hearts have become hard. Power has replaced principle. He didn't hide from history. He didn't excuse atrocities. He named them as betrayals, not of faith, but of conscience. And Buddha, the one who clings to the raft after crossing the river, has misunderstood its purpose. My teaching is a path, not a prison. That was the kind of wisdom that hits days later. We take sacred ideas meant to liberate and turn them into cages, flags, labels, factions, all while missing the original point, freedom. The conversation got quieter after that, heavier, and I found myself asking the question not to them, but to myself, are we actually using these teachings to heal or to divide? I thought about the world today, how people weaponize scripture in political debates, use religious identity as a badge of superiority, and draw lines over who's saved and who's lost. All three of them had become symbols in wars they never asked for. Their words twisted into battle cries. Their compassion buried under centuries of tribalism. And yet there was still hope. Because underneath it all, they agreed on something profound. Unity is not sameness. Jesus never said everyone would agree. He said they should love. Muhammad never said diversity was a flaw. He said arrogance was. Buddha never demanded belief. He invited awareness. True unity, they showed me, isn't about cloning minds. It's about transcending ego. So what do we do with that? We stop using their names to win arguments. We stop quoting their words while ignoring their example. We stop pretending that division is holy when it's just pride dressed up in sacred language. Because if these three could sit together, side by side, in respect and honesty, what excuse do we have? That's what stayed with me. Not the answers, but the posture. They weren't fighting. They weren't flexing power. They were listening, speaking from deep wells of truth, but without venom. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Unity doesn't mean agreement on every detail. It means we refuse to turn difference into hostility. It means we sit at the table even when we disagree and still see the humanity in each other. If Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha can do that, what's stopping us? Maybe the real war isn't between religions. Maybe it's between the humble and the arrogant, between those who seek truth and those who seek control. And in that war, the side you're on isn't proven by what you say, it's proven by how you live. And that's the question that should follow us all are we building bridges with their names or burning them?